Joining us now, Pat Buchanan, advisor to Nixon, Reagan, so many others, author of Nixon's White House Wars, the battles that made and broke a president and divided America forever. Pat, I have to say, of all my years in Washington, I don't think – I thought it was election night when I saw people's heads spin around. Like they're all like totally aghast at what was happening in the Rust Belt and all the states that Trump won. But now when Trump says, the Republicans aren't giving me anything I can work with. Hey, Nancy, what do you got on your plate? Let's see if we can work together. They're just in a complete meltdown. Hey, Pat.
How you doing?
I'm good.
They are indeed.
Keeping everybody guessing. Everyone's guessing.
Well, you can understand the president's, frustration, exasperation, impatience. They got nothing done, and they couldn't repeal and replace Obamacare in 7 months, and then he comes back and they're all arguing over the debt ceiling, and so he finally says, look, let's get this done. If you can't get the 18 months, I'm going with the 3 months. Chuck and Nancy will help me out on that. And I think he did the right thing, but I will say this. First, down the road, he's going to face a real crunch on an awful lot of things in December, piling up. And secondly, now he's got to make a strategic decision. This could be a seismic change in American politics. Take the immigration issue and take DACA and amnesty for the Dreamers. My guess is he's probably looking to cut a deal with the Democrats on not deporting anybody at the same time, or of the 800,000 at the same time they give him something on the wall of defense, and the fat will really be in the fire.
Well, I think that that's probably not the best deal because $1.6 billion down payment or whatever it ends up being, that means nothing if Nancy Pelosi becomes the Speaker of the House next year. And we know the Republicans don't want to pay for the wall either. They don't want a wall for the most part. So the $1.6 billion gives Trump some cover on the wall promise. Right. But it ain't going to build a significant barrier at the border. I mean, that's going to be, 30 miles? Or I don't know what that's going to be, 100 miles?
Well, I know exactly. It's not going to do it, but they're not going to give him the wall. But the point is he really is headed now down a road that leads
to amnesty.
If the Republicans can't get their act together and get united and solidly united in the Senate and the House, that leads to Trump doing deals on tax reform and on immigration and on infrastructure and getting the necessary Democratic votes by giving them something of what they want. And this is a real problem for the Republican majorities in both houses. That, in fact, the leaders and the majorities are bypassed.
Well, Pat, I've said for some time now that unless they deliver results, unless individuals inside the White House deliver results, they're not going to last long. Trump's a results guy. Show me what you can do for me. How am I going to be more popular after this 3-month period where you say we're going to do X, Y, and Z? Show me. So what did you do again? And so the Republicans came up empty.
What he is. He's a builder. When he runs into a problem, they say, well, we haven't been able to excavate. Well, you didn't do it. Now get out of here and get this other company in here.
Right.
Let's get something done, because what I do is put buildings up. And what he's saying basically to the Congress is, look, I want an agenda, and I want it enacted, and I want it passed, and I want a record that says Donald Trump was a successful president who came to Washington, D.C., and did what he promised, and he had to deal with Democrats because Republicans couldn't put the ball across the goal line.
I make a prediction now that if the Republicans do not decide on a significant, meaningful, powerful tax reform package that they vote on before December 1st. I don't think they can wait until the Christmas Eve deal. That's when all the mischief gets thrown into these bills. But if they don't pass and he doesn't sign tax reform, Trump's gonna do a lot more deals with the Democrats, and he's gonna run as kind of an independent populist, and he'll probably be a lot more popular than Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who right now in the last, I think it was the Gallup, 15% each. That's with their popularity. So he has double the popularity. One poll shows him now at 45%, so he's gone up 7%. He's a lot more popular than they are, and he wants to be a popular president. He wants to be popular.
Sure, and it's a fair demand of the Congress. Look, get together, agree upon a bill which does the things we all want, and you guys make the compromises inside the Republican caucuses in both houses. And if you can't, because I want tax cuts. I need them. I'm going to have to deal with the Democrats. And so then you get they move away from basically a Republican, conservative-oriented tax deal to a more populist one. You know, Bannon was talking about raising taxes on the super rich.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I can understand Trump, but the point is that this is a real ultimatum to the Republicans in both houses. I mean, do something with your majority.
I love it. I've got to say, I think it's genius. I think it's genius. I think, you know, it doesn't mean I'm going to be happy with some of the things that happen.
Compromises that come out, right?
Yeah, but look, I said this last night on Special Report. The Republicans have no one to blame but themselves. If they had stopped trashing Trump to reporters and behind closed doors and sometimes on the microphones, like after Charlottesville, and if Mitch hadn't said, "Oh, it's too this is all too complex. Donald Trump's new at this game. It's too complex." If they hadn't promised Donald Trump that Obamacare was going to be repealed, then it was skinny repeal was going to happen. None of it happened. They didn't give him the support he needed. They trashed him on the travel ban. They did all this stuff. And imagine, Pat, had they actually worked with him and gotten a couple of these big things done. Imagine if they hadn't gone home for their August recess.
Exactly. What did they went home? 5 weeks or something like that?
Yep.
Then they came back and it was about September 4th or 5th. And I heard someone on the radio say, well, they're going to be in session for 12 days.
That's good work if you can get it.
What is it with these guys?
Yeah. Well,
you know, a lot of us journalists, when we were in the White House, we were working 80-hour weeks and stuff.
No, yeah, that's out the window. We got to get home and go to those picnics and stuff. This was Steve Bannon, part of his interview with Charlie Rose, which is going to air on Sunday on 60 Minutes.
The Republican establishment is trying to nullify the 2016 election. That's a brutal fact we have to face.
The Republican establishment wants to nullify the 2016 election.
Trying to nullify the 2016 election. Right. Absolutely.
Who?
I think Mitch McConnell, and to a degree, Paul Ryan. They do not want Donald Trump's populist, economic, nationalist agenda to be implemented. It's very obvious.
I completely agree with Bannon. I have a book on populism coming out in October, Pat, called Billionaire at the Barricades. And, you know, they never liked Trump, didn't want him to win, didn't think he was going to win, and don't like dealing with him. And now Trump says, okay, you don't like me? These other people don't like me either, but at least they'll cut deals.
I think what happened is that leadership in both houses of the Congress decided, look, we've got Trump, we've got him for 4 years, we can get some things from him on getting rid of these executive orders of Obama and getting rid of the climate deal and the rest of it, but we can outlast him. He'll be here and then he'll be gone and then we go back to business. But there's no going back to business for the Republicans. The old Republican ways of, if you will, the Bush Republicans, say, of 2016, that class of 16 candidates, that is all over.
It's gone.
It is all over, and what Trump has given them is a signal. You know, look, we cannot go along with your program. You get nothing done. If you bring something down to me to sign, I'll sign it. But if you can't get anything done up there, fellas, I'll talk to my friends Nancy and Chuck.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And Pat, for all these Freedom Caucus guys to come forward and, you know, and Rand Paul, and he's grousing about the debt ceiling, and look, I completely understand what he's talking about. We're borrowing money from Canada, Japan, China, Germany, running up the debt. But because the Senate could have passed Obamacare repeal and we could have saved $800 billion over 10 years. They decided they didn't want to do that.
Well, exactly. And look, you got to. I mean, I think the average American looks out there and says, "Look, you've spent the money, you've appropriated the money and spent the money, and now how do you think you're going to pay for it?" And they say, you know, got to raise the debt ceiling. They say, well, all of us, we've got to deal with our own family budget. My business, I can only spend so much and have to borrow to cover this and that. Everybody does it, but every year we find ourselves on the brink of a national default. And what are they doing? They're fooling around with this up on the Hill, and people can't understand it. And that's why I think there was enormous applause when Trump said, look, if you can't do it for 18 months, I'm doing it for 3 months. Let's do it. Let's get $8 billion or whatever we need down there in Houston, get ready for Miami, and it's done. And I think people probably stood up and applauded.
Now, I think in the polls that came out afterward, not to say they're all accurate, but people want, more than anything, they want the parties to work together to get real results for America versus, you know, dickering over the debt ceiling.
That's exactly the message you got to tell the Republicans. I mean, if I were Trump, get them in the room and say, look, I want to work with you guys. I want to have
They're there today.
programs we agree on, but you got to get me something down here I can
Need
sign.
something.
We have to and get it done, and you haven't done it. You're forcing me to go where I'm going to go because you may be content with being a failure and doing nothing. I am not.
And Paul Ryan was with Martha McCallum last night and said this.
We've actually passed more bills in the House for the president and his agenda in this first 6 months of his administration than in the first 6 months of Obama, Clinton, and both Bushes. The House has passed 316 bills. That's a record pace. Now, 260 of them are still in the Senate. The Senate's busy working on judges and appointees and the rest. But the House has been extremely productive. Not just extremely productive. The House has been more productive than any Congress in the modern era.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that, Pat.
That's a fairly hard sell.
He's feeling that conservative challenge coming, isn't he?
Congress is at 12% approval. I think they've soared up from 8% or something. And the reason is you got all this Mickey Mouse stuff, I'm sure they've done, but the big items, the big 4 or 5 items everyone talked about, they got none of them.
Yeah, we passed legislation to break ground on the new FEMA warehouse in Arlington. Oh, Pat Raymond Arroyo's
here. We
here.
changed the name of a post office to get Stonewall Jackson's name off.
Oh no! Don't even start on that. Don't even start on that.
The new Barack Obama public school is going up in many municipalities.
Hey Pat, what about that? What about Bannon hitting the bishops though? Was that hilarious? On the bishops are all. They're all going after Bannon now. We don't have time to play them. DACA.
The bishops are after Bannon?
Oh, yeah, because he said they want the reason they're all for amnesty.
Must be doing something right.
Yeah. Dolan is just going crazy, the Cardinal of New York.
I haven't seen Bannon's statement, but I'm sure I will find it interesting.
Well, Pat, we really appreciate your joining us, and you have a great weekend. We'll check in with you next week, the week after. We'll take a break. Don't go away.